To manage technology strategically is crucial to achievement of the operational objectives of an organization. And I'm not talking about choosing the number of scanners, which is also technology. I'm talking about what technology we use within that process, or each of the processes. The first topic discusses the importance of the strategic application of technology to both manufacturing and services. We'll then discuss issues associated with process management, and one means of analysing cost of new products, processes and services, which is break-even analysis. Just between you and I, in the recording. I have no idea why break-even analysis was actually put into this part of the curriculum. It's a way in which you can analyse something, and yes, certainly break-even analysis is something that we would do within a strategic and also tactical strategies. But why it's put in here, I don't know. The only thing that I can think of is that it fits very nicely in using technology such as a spreadsheet to work out these types of calculations. I'm not going to ask you to do it, but I've given you a couple of examples towards the end of these slides, which if you like you can actually go in there and do them manually, and then see how much easier it is if you use something like an Excel spreadsheet to do it, just by changing the variables rather than having to calculate it all each time. I've been using this type of technology for such a long time now. I think I started in early 80s. When I was with the oil company that I was working for, and I could do my work so much faster than what I was doing it manually. This is the example that I would use for you to say that as a production planner, what I was doing was taking 30 hours a week of my time with a calculator. These calculators had been invented when I was doing this. But there was no such thing as a personal computer. The company had a mainframe computer, but we never had access to it. At an operational level, we never had access to the mainframe. We were in a branch office, and the mainframe was in head office, 1,000 kilometers away. So we got the reports. So we weren't able to do these things ourselves. This was an example of the first use of technology in what we call automating, the automating stage of technology. The automating stage of technology is to be able to do exactly what we did manually, but doing it more efficiently, doing it faster, being able to put in variables rather than hard wiring figures in. Those types of things. Yes, it was simply a way of doing things with a computer that we could have done manually anyway, if we had the time. I went from 30 hours of slogging away, working out all of these production plans, to being able to do it in 4 to 5 hours. 4 to 5 hours by using my original Tandy TRS-80 Level 1, which came out in the late 70s and I was in the early 80s. This was the first time that I had used a computer in this particular way, although I'd been using mainframe computers for quite some time. But the use of computers in this way was the first time that I had ever used my own computer, a personal computer, as we all use now. We all have our own computers. The amazing thing is your phones probably have more computing power. Is that the Nokia? A 920. You see, 2 of us have got one at least. So we know that Nokia has at least sold 2 in the world. There's more computing power in those computers than were in the computers that NASA used to send the first men to the moon. Far more computing power. It's scary, really, isn't it? So again, this first stage of introducing technology into management was really the automating stage. Automating the processes, or making it automatic processes of doing what we would have normally done manually, but doing it with the help of a computer. I'll talk later on about the second stage, which Zsuzsanna Zuboff, in a book that she wrote called In the Age of the Smart Machine, that she talked about informating. And the informating stage is what's really, really important for us as modern managers. Modern managers need to understand that technology can be used for things more than just the outputs that we would normally have been able to get if we had enough time and money, people to do it manually. Informating gives us information out of a computer, out of technology, that we couldn't have got if we'd only done them manually. And that's a phase of the technology use within management that we should be concentrating on. There is one stage above that, and that's transformating, which really transforms a whole industry because you have got technology to do it. And there are examples of this. There's examples of this, of transforming industries, of the airlines, for example. The airlines transforms the way that they take bookings. They have a far greater usage of their flights, because they can sell the seats that are available at a much lower cost. But you need knowledge, you need a very good information system to do that. Theoretically, it may have been possible to do it with an enormous amount of communication, still doing it manually, but nobody could actually do it. It's only a computer that's a single database which has the flight plan on it, the seats, that you could actually do it. It transforms the way that industries run. It's the same with banking. Can anyone think now that if a bank didn't have any online access, how competitive it would be of actually going in? I'm not too sure whether anybody actually goes into banks anymore. I try desperately not to go into a bank, especially where they've located my bank in a place I can never park. So, I always try to do things online. I have bank accounts in 4 countries. It's impossible for me to go into all of those branches, but I use each of those accounts on a regular basis. Each week I'm probably into each of them. Couldn't possibly have done that without the use of technology. And that's transformative. So, technology is the engine that drives the economies of nations. And this nation in particular is one that has recognized that and is using any facility that it's got to increase the use of technology. And as part of the use of technology, it's you guys being here at the moment. It is making the incentive for people to know how to use that technology in the right way. There's no point of having the technology if you just let it sit there and don't actually use it properly. This is an integration between the technology itself and the ability to use the technology and to be innovative. So technological capabilities constitute the cutting edge of business strategies of enterprises that excel in what is now the intensely competitive global marketplace. Across a wide and expanding spectrum of products and production capabilities, technology has become the single most important factor driving global industrial competition. We are squarely in the information or knowledge era age. We have moved from an industrial age. Although there are a lot of organizations that haven't quite realized that, or the implications of moving into that knowledge era. away from the more, I don't know whether I could say outdated, but the past industrial age technology. So it's how we use that technology, how we can apply it. One way to define technology strategy is by seeing it as that link between products and services an organization brings to market and the underpinning technologies of these products and services, the driving force. We're talking, I use an example later about an ERP system, an enterprise resource planning system, which we talk about next week and also in the final week. An enterprise system looks at an organization as an organization. It was originally brought in, these systems were originally brought in for materials manufacturing, materials management, I should say. And it expanded it out. It went from MRP, which is materials requirements planning, to manufacturing resource planning, to an ERP system. Again, next week we'll talk about that. But there is and the idea is that once we have got these sophisticated systems available to us, and your organization has it, and your organization has it because you're competing, where's the competitive advantage? Where's the competitive advantage? You've got this technology. Both of you have got this same technology. The innovation component of how you actually apply that technology. We're going to have to pick on you two for this particular one. You two don't have the technology at all. So even though these guys have got no competitive advantage against each other, they certainly have a big competitive advantage over the people that don't have it at all. So you don't have a competitive advantage, but you definitely have a competitive disadvantage by not having that technology in any shape or form. But it's not, and let's say this group over here has the technology but they're not using it at all. And that's the same as there. It's only the people that are trying to use the technology in an appropriate way that are actually going to benefit from using the technology. So it's innovation that needs to come into the technology itself. So managers throughout an organization have this obligation to ensure that technology is used most effectively. Then you have to think in terms of whether to develop technology in-house or to outsource. When I started seriously looking at technology in my business inventory management services, I decided I'd do everything myself. There was a reason for that. It was such an early days in the development of this type of technology. There wasn't many people who actually knew how to help me anyway. So I was there designing the code, I was there training the people on how to use it. But I was also doing things like I was soldering the DB9 cables with the, I can't even see the plug, let alone the cables these days. But I was doing all of this work myself. I wasn't outsourcing anything. I was doing everything associated with the networking. We had modems in those days that we were actually linking in with direct lines between various branches, because the internet really wasn't available in those days. So all of these things I had to learn to do myself. And yes, it was efficient because it was all in one shop, me, but I was the only one that could do it at that stage. Yeah, and I could certainly control it. But it comes a time where you really do have to think in terms of, is this my core capability here? Is this what I really should be doing? And if you're designing a system, you really shouldn't be the same sort of person who had the time to solder on the connections.
You decide when you, after that you start to think this is right decision?
Yes. So over time, there's always this play between outsourcing and insourcing. Ultimately, it's a decision for somebody to make. Whether you design your own systems or you just say, well, let's use somebody else's. And this is why most of the Fortune 500 companies, the top 500 companies in the world, all chosen to use things like SAP as their tool of technology. They don't want to go out and do things themselves. They don't want an IT department to actually design something. There's something that's out there that is suitable for most organizations to use. So they outsource it. They use someone else's.
Then what happened?
Sorry?
Then what happened? What did you do at the end?
At the end, well, it's
Because
you
you
know,
know,
sure.
then how did you sort out?
well, I used to do everything myself, and then as time goes on, there's something about technology that the people who are the best at technology are the last people that are likely to change away from that technology. Did I last week use the example of floppy disk drives?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the examples. The people that were really, really efficient at what they're doing, the top of the bunch, the best people who were building 1.44 megabyte floppy drives, weren't the people who went to CDs. It was their competitors who went to CDs because they weren't at the top. So the better you are at something, the least likely you are to give that competitive advantage away and go to another type of technology. In the end, when I was building my stuff, I was doing it with Unix, which I still think is the best. I still think it's the best operating system. I know what Windows does, but I still think that Unix is probably Unix or Linux is a better operating system than Windows. And I was concentrating on Linux or Unix systems. Xenix was the system that I was using. Santa Cruz organization Xenix. But then Windows came along and sort of jumped over. And Windows, I have to say, is much more friendly to use than Linux or Unix used to be. And customers really like the look of it. My systems are still being used 15 years later, which is quite amazing for an application software package. And there are features within that particular ones that are still not available in the new packages today. But over time, you need to be flexible. You need to be able to say, I've had a good time with this, I've had a good run with this technology, now we move on. Because things do change very rapidly. Your requirements change very rapidly. And if there's one thing that I want you to walk away from this course, is this understanding that in management, you cannot stay with the same thing indefinitely. You need to always be looking at the opportunities. Did I tell you what my definition of luck was? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. When preparation meets opportunity. You have to be prepared, and I guess this is what these types of courses do. It prepares you to be aware of seeing the opportunity. So when the opportunity comes in front of you, you say, oh, I can see that as an opportunity. And people then say, wow, isn't he lucky? Isn't he or she lucky? Are they lucky? Well, yeah, I've been very lucky, but only because I've been able to see those opportunities that have been presented. If I couldn't see it, if I couldn't see those opportunities, the opportunities would have flown by. Or wasn't he unlucky? He should have done that. Be lucky. Lucky is good. So that's a roundabout way of saying that I didn't change fast enough. I had this very, very good system, which I developed over a long period of time, and I wasn't fast enough. I wasn't fast enough to say, okay, Unix is finished for the time being, even though it's made a comeback now. Mid-90s, through the turn of the century into, say, 2005, it was all Windows. It wasn't Linux. If you were selling anything but Windows, it was a very difficult role to have. So, again, where is the competitive advantage? If everybody owns the same technology, it's in the innovation. And we wrote about this. This is a UAE paper. Sorry, it's a book chapter. Innovation, on the other hand, continues to play its traditionally important role in sustaining competitiveness. And that's what we need to do. Innovation sustains your competitiveness. We wrote that these are Alain students of mine at UAEU. And it's in a book called Open Innovation in Firms and something. But it's in the reference notes anyway. And we talked about this in 2011. And it's only just getting airtime now. People are picking up on these particular ideas and saying, well, yes, you're right. It's not what SAP is going to tell you. SAP is going to try and sell you the system, because that's where they make their money. And yes, they will supply you with services, but that's extra. But it's really up to the people that buy an SAP system or buy an Oracle system to say, well, how can we use this technology to transform processes of transformation from going from input to output and to add more value. That's still innovative. That's still innovation that's required. We've got the technology, but then we have to use it on top of that. So ERP systems in particular become the de facto standard for large and medium organizations to run and make a functioning process operation. They've been described by these guys as merely the price of entry for running a business these days. And if you haven't got something like an ERP system in place, it becomes very difficult to remain competitive. You're putting yourself at a big disadvantage compared with other people. I noticed that this particular paper started to fly as well. I know it's 13 years old. It was one of the first papers that I had accepted for the Americas Conference on Information Systems in 2000. ERP systems described as technology diffusion through social systems. It was a great line. There's difficulties in actually getting new types of technology into organizations, because there are people within your organizations that still think about doing things in a particular way. No, I've been doing it well for such a long time. Very much like me in inventory management services. I've been doing it for such a long time, I don't want to change. So I'm one of those culprits as well. But when new technology comes along, you still can't just say, well, there's the new technology, we're going to use it. It's how you bring that technology into your social system, because it's the people that need to actually run it. It's really quite important. I think this paper was called Organizational Readiness for ERP Systems. It's whether or not the organization sets itself up to accept new technology. So technology has profound effects on how services are managed and expected by customers. Services in the following sectors have been transformed by technology. In medicine, there are so many things that we do in medicine these days, from robotics. In Australia we have, sometimes our top surgeons can't afford the time to go to remote locations to do surgery. So what do? We use the internet and a robot. So the surgeon can be in Brisbane, and the patient can be in Alice Springs. And the surgeon can be actually doing the work in Brisbane and cutting somebody and taking bits and whatever they do in surgery, 3,000 kilometres away. It's pretty amazing technology if you think about it. Yeah, I hear all the stories about what if the link goes down? Well, I don't know. So, but these these are really amazing. The MRIs that we get these days, all of the equipment in hospitals, it's quite amazing. The telecommunications, there's a story that I told when I came back to Australia in, I think it was about 1997. So we're talking almost 20 years ago now. In Australia, I live in a little country community, which, you know, it's very old world. It doesn't have any technology. It has a terrible internet facility, by the way, but it's a country area. It's certainly not city. And next to that, there's a place that's even more countrified, even more basic. It's a little place called Canungra, and it's a wonderful location. It's nestled between two hills, very cool in the summer there. It's a lovely place to visit. And it's a tourist spot. So I was having lunch there one day, after coming back from building my robotic warehouse in Taiwan. And it suddenly struck me of the comparison that I was in Australia with none of this technology. And I'd just come back that morning from Taiwan, where I had one of the most advanced technological exercises that were being undertaken in warehousing. And we got talking to the owner of the restaurant we were eating. And they said, "Oh, what are you doing these days?" And I said, "Oh, I'm actually building robotic warehouses in Taiwan." He looked, he said, "Excuse me?" No comprehension at all of what I was talking about. I mean, they didn't even have a warehouse in Canungra, let alone a robotic warehouse. And I thought, well, that didn't go down particularly well. I said, well, if you had an internet connection now, I could run a 40-ton robot in Taiwan. And I thought, this isn't working. I just couldn't get this message across about how far technology had actually gone. That I could actually be sitting in Canungra, which is the least technological advanced place in Australia, and could be actually operating a 40-ton robot the other side of the world over the internet. Now, I'm not absolutely sure whether this guy even knew what I was talking about, let alone believe what I could that I could do. But it was true. I could actually do this. I could run robots from anywhere in the world through the internet to anywhere in the world. Now, these are the sorts of things that technology allow you to do. I don't know why I'd want to do that, other than to show people that I could do it, but it is possible to do this. And if you can do this, think about all of the other things that you could do. You know, you don't have to, for example, a society does not have to accumulate itself within the city anymore. They can live in places like Canungra, in a beautiful location, and do their work from home, and don't have to actually go in and commute each day. So these are the sorts of things that in the future we may be able to do with that technology. Retail changes enormously by the use of technology. Education, we haven't got it right with education yet. This is a form of technology, of course. Your PowerPoint slides and being able to do this. I do remember when I did my undergraduate and went back and looked at my notes fairly recently, and I saw they were all handwritten notes. You know, the ink is faded by now, but and I was thinking, did I really do this? We don't think about doing it in this way anymore. And education with online teaching, online learning, it's a difficult road to hoe, but eventually it could change. Banking, of course, and airlines, which we've talked about, absolutely transformed by technology. And if we didn't use those technologies in those sectors, it would be very difficult to remain competitive as we know it. So, internet and e-business. E-business has the potential to restructure processes and functions to allow greater and more efficient utilization of assets, reduced operating costs. How many people that were educated in the Middle East remember Tariq bin Ziyad going to Andalusia and saying burn the ships? And you would know this, verbatim. You would be able to recite it. The enemy is in front, the sea is behind. We can only go forward. And this is the same idea with technology. Sometimes, and I use this when I teach specifically e-business, to say that when we change from a traditional way of marketing within retail, for example, that we tend not to give up our ideas about how we used to do things. We need to be able to effectively burn the ships, to forget about how we did things in the past and say we want to move in this direction. And I don't know if you've ever interpreted the Tariq bin Ziyad saying in this particular way. But think about it in a very broad sense. This is what he was saying. We can only go in one direction. And it's removing the way of going back. And with technology, this is very critical. The fact that if we want to go in this particular direction, then we remove the way of going backwards into the old ways we were doing things. When was this? In 900 something, wasn't it?
Yes.
900? So we're talking well over 1,000 years ago that this same principle was actually being talked about. Yeah. So we're talking 1,100 years ago. We're in a different century. So it's appropriate to use in traditional and virtual marketplaces different styles, because we've got new technology. It's not just about the technology. It's not just being in Andalusia. Now we've got to do something about being in Andalusia. We've got the new technology. Now we completely look at the way that we do things. I've got, if I had old technology here, I'd be able to do this much better. It's just an example that I'm going to use. Oh, no, I've lost it. I've kept these for many years. I have to use it on here. Just like that. This is the example that was actually shown to me by a guy called Edward de Bono, who wrote about 6 hats, 5 hats, how many? 7 hats. Okay. This is the same guy, and he wrote a lot of management books along this line. Yes, yes. So he showed me this on the Gold Coast in Australia many years ago. Unfortunately, I was able to be there and use this. You have parts of technology, parts of systems. And what you do as a manager is to say, well, okay, we've got these parts of the systems. How do we make sense of it? How do we make sense of this? Ooh, yeah, this is what we can do. We can put our technology and our processes together like this. And that makes sense. That's a rectangle. Yes, it makes sense in this way. And then, and that's the right decision, okay? It's the right decision at this particular point. Then some more technology comes along, new processes or new markets come along, and we say, oh, okay. How do we actually embed this into what we're doing? Oh, there we go. That makes sense. We'll put that like that. And that's also the right decision, yes? So far, we've made exactly the right decisions from a management perspective. Bear in mind what we've got here. And then 2 more parts of the puzzle comes into play. And this could be internet, could be business, could be processes, it could be markets, it could be anything that comes in. And we say, okay, what have we got here? That doesn't fit. That doesn't fit. And whatever. We can't fit this new technology into all of the things that we have done up to this particular stage. Correct decisions up to this stage. What we then have to do is we have to then realize that it is necessary to sometimes abandon what we have had to rearrange it in a completely different way to accommodate the new technology. In this particular way, you see, it's very difficult doing it by hand. We do it then. By doing it like this. And then it makes sense. We've made the right decisions up to a particular point in time. But when new technology becomes available, all of the things that we have done in the past to make the new technology be more efficient. Do you understand that principle? Thank you again, Edward Devona, for that. Some relevant publications that we talked, the DAGBOK and ASRS case study, I hope that you have got by now. It forms part of your exam. It's too big to read in the exam. So it should have been actually sent out to you. You've got 3 weeks to read it before the exam, of going through and understanding what's actually in it. Yeah, it goes on and on, doesn't it? No, there are a couple of questions associated with that case study. I didn't think it was fair to give you a case study that was so large within the exam. So I give it to you for 3 weeks beforehand.
Questions?
Yes. But I haven't told you the question about it's a question associated with this. So we will talk about that much later. But I wanted to make sure that you have this particular case study. Also, the one that we did was e-business use in the UAE. Again, it was a paper that we presented in San Francisco for the Americas Conference on Information System. It talked about this country having what I consider as the greatest infrastructure for e-business. We looked at reasons why e-business was not being used quite so effectively with that brilliant infrastructure. So if anybody wants a copy of this, I can make it available to you. But I think it's also on, actually, from memory, people, because it's such an important subject, and in business now, you know, colleges at an undergraduate and postgraduate level are actually asking this question. It has become, what's the word for it? There is it's a paper mill. It's part of a paper mill. Oh, I better explain what a paper mill is. At both an undergraduate and postgraduate level, if you give a student a question such as why, for example, why is the internet or why is e-business not being used effectively in the UAE? You know, this might be one of the papers that you look at because it explains about cultural, about education and whatever. If it's on the internet, then you're going to find it. And some students will simply take this paper and say, now it's mine. Put their name to it, and that's what's called a paper mill. There's all sorts of implications. There are people that will write your assignments for you, undergraduates and postgraduates. If they're not capable of writing it themselves, they can pay for somebody else to write it. This is called a paper mill. You can find somebody to do your homework for you. do your assignments for you. And this has unfortunately become one of those paper mills ones because it's an area which everybody's asking about now. It should never be done, of course, but it is often done. So if you look on the internet, you'll probably be able to find a paper mill version of this particular one. But of course, I'm aware of it. When you develop new products or come into new products, there's also a product life cycle. And I'm sure that you would have been doing this in marketing. Yes, in marketing. So, I won't go over it a lot. I'll let marketing explain it in more detail. But understand where your product is in terms of a product life cycle. And answering your question again about my business, my product was in a decline stage. And I should have changed it over, which more about at this stage. This is where organizations should be thinking about changing their products, their product lines at this stage. So again, understand that all products, regardless of what it is, and all technology, have this same sort of product life cycle. New products serve to provide growth opportunities and competitive advantage for the organization. So increasingly there is a challenge to introduce new products more quickly without sacrificing quality. Personal computers now have a very short product life cycle, less than 1 year. Car makers can now introduce a new model in half the time that it used to take. It used to take about four years to get cars to marketplace. Now you can get it down, it's much more than half the time. I think you can get a new model out in about 12 months these days. So CAD/CAM technology and or concurrent engineering are some of the methods used. I happen to have some dentists in my LA class who told me, and I have not seen this, she said that they have CAD/CAM for the mouth. You believe that? The computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing to rebuild teeth in the mouth. Any dentist here that can confirm or deny this? Dentists. They're all in LA. About 4 or 5 dentists in my class in LA. But, so I didn't know this particular technology, but they all swear by it. They all say, yes, this is technology that's currently being used. CAD/CAM for making, renewing teeth. So that's computer-aided design, computer-aided manufacturing. A service can be seen as a process, a method of doing things. So technology can be used to change the way the processes are carried out. Computerization of manual processes is just one example. So my example of when I was a production planner or production controller, just one example to automate a manual process. One of those things. But we've gone beyond that at this stage. But it was the process by which we did it. Process is a series of events or activities intended to produce a certain result for a customer. And that customer can either be internal or external. A physical product, a hamburger, a dental work, or information, advice on a course, can all be enhanced by these processes. The issue of whether we should actually perform the processes at all lies at the heart of whether to outsource or insource. It might be determined by whether the process is core or non-core. The examples of that is Hewlett-Packard. Hewlett-Packard had a wonderful model. Now in big trouble with Hewlett-Packard. But Hewlett-Packard originally did everything themselves. They created all of the raw components, they put all the raw components into computers, they distributed those components, those finished products, they sold it, they marketed it and whatever. But little by little, Hewlett-Packard said, well, that's not what we do. That's not our core capability. So we'll outsource, we'll get somebody else to assemble all of the raw materials that we bring in into computers. So they have a plant, an assembly plant in Singapore. And once they've assembled the boxes, then they stored them. But they said, well, hang on, storing is not really what we do. We can outsource that. So they outsourced it to a logistics company in Singapore, and the logistics company distributed it to their own marketing people around the world. But then they said, hang on, we're not really marketers either. Let's outsource that. So in the end, what were Hewlett Packard actually doing? You know, they weren't assembling anymore. They weren't distributing. They weren't marketing it. What were they actually doing? And what is their core capability?